Okay, good morning. So we are doing today just so many unbelievable Gemaras that we're doing today Chav Dalet Amud. We are still on Chav Dalet Amud Aleph, about 10 lines up from the widest lines. When the Gemara says Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, the Gemara says, was Gazar at Tainus. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, yeah? Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya Gazar Ta'anisa. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya was Gazar at Tainus again. Presumably there was a situation of a lack of rain. The rain didn't come despite their davening. He says, what a massive difference there is between me, Yehuda ben Gamliel, and Shmuel Hanavi. Right, because Shmuel, remember when he got angry at the Jews for asking for a king, so the rain comes in the middle of the summer. This generation is stuck with somebody like me, that we can't get the rain. Also for a generation that ends up in a situation that has leaders like this. He became very depressed, lost the mitra, and the rain came. Before we go any further, I just want to point out to you something that I find a little odd. You remember we had a Yehuda Nasiya once before in Taanit. Where was that? On Yudal Amud Aleph, on the bottom of the page. The last line of Yudal Amud Aleph, if you look at the Gemara says, "B'shnei de Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya have tzayra." In the days of Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, when they had issues in terms of the rain, the Gazar Tainus and the Gazar Tlasas or Tainus, the Gazar 13 Tainus, they didn't get an answer. Over here, there's no Rashi. Look here in Chav Daled. Rashi tells us Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, who was that? Haya benoy shor Gamliel bar Rebbe. Who was that? It's the grandson of Rebbe. Rebbe had a son, Gamliel, and this was the son of that. What did the Gemara say over here? The Gemara says Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya's Gazar Tainus in the davening, and no one's answering. And it says, look at the major difference between me, Yehuda ben Gamliel, and Shmuel Armasi. So I personally don't understand. The story itself explains who Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya is. He's the son of Gamliel, right? He's the son of Rebbe. That the story is telling us itself, and Rashi feels the need to explain. But yet, back on your Daled, the first time we have in this Masechta of Yehuda Nasiya, there we don't feel the need to explain, right? Obviously, Yehuda Nasiya is not the same as Yehuda Nasi, and he appears many times in Shas. Yeah, it's like what I said in Brachas. Sometimes when the Gemara says Mishum Rabbeinu, it nearly always refers to Mishum Rabbeinu as Rav. One time it's referring to a Shmuel, and one time refers to Rebbe. Put that on the side. But just most of the times that Mishum Rabbeinu appears, it's always Rav. And if you go through Brachas, where it appears a number of times, sometimes Rashi explains Rabbeinu Rav, sometimes he doesn't. And I can't figure out a rhyme or reason as exactly why. So it's the same question over here. But here it's worse because not just that you didn't explain it the first time it appeared in the Masechta, you're explaining it in a place where literally the story itself is going to say who he is. Yeah, I'm not sure. In any event, continues the Gemara. So the Chalishat Hadas, that's when the prayer gets really, really intense, and that's when the answer happened. The Vei Nasiya, so now we're not talking about Yehuda Nasiya, now we're talking about the house of the Nasi. So we don't know which generation exactly it was, but presumably it was around the same generation because of who the story is taking place with. Because remember that Yehuda Nasiya, right, he's from the Amiram, and he is from the time of Rabbi Yochanan. So why this story says it's the Nevei Nasiya rather than the Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, I'm not sure. Maybe it was his own son, I don't know, but he was around there in times of Rabbi Yochanan and Shlakish, which the next story takes place with. So the Nevei Nasiya goes with Tanis. They were goes with Tanis because of the lack of rain. But no, somebody forgot to tell Rabbi Yochanan and Shlakish, by the way, we have a Tanis Tzibur here for lack of rain. Let Safra in the morning, I do know, then they let them know, oh, by the way, today's a fast day. So Amalei Rishlakish Rabbi Yochanan, Halakibanu Lameurta. We didn't accept this fast from us yesterday. I'm sorry, Anan Basrar Garina. We are going after them. We're going after the public. So let's first suspend a second. What's the back and forth between Yochanan and Rishlakish? If you go back to the Gemara we had on your base, The Gemara earlier we had on your Beis Amud Aleph, the Gemara said as follows: the Amar Rabbi Yochanan, right? It was talking about taking on Taanit. So the Gemara says, Amar Shmuel, I'm sorry, called Tainus like people living by Yom Lav Shmei Tainus. Any Tainus that's accepted from the day before, that is a Tainus. But if it's not, meaning if you go to sleep without a Kabbalah's Tainus, the next morning when you wake up, that's not going to be considered a Tainus. So it seems clear that you have to accept the Tainus the day before the Tainus. And so something more Rav and Shmuel, is it by Mincha, is it by Tfilat Mincha? But put that on the side. Everyone agrees that when you're accepting a Tainus, it has to be the day before. So clearly that's what Rish Lakish is bothered by. Rish Lakish is saying to Rabbi Yochanan, Alan Me'urta. We didn't accept the Tainus the day before. So today, now that they're telling us there's a fast, but we didn't accept it, so why should we be fasting? Says Rabbi Yochanan, Anan Basra Garina, we're going after them. Meaning, this is not a Tainus Yachid. A Tainus Yachid has to be accepted from the day before. This is not a Tainus Yachid, this is a Tainus Tzibur. The Bein Nasiya is already making this Tainus. So if they're making this Tainus, then we have to follow it, even if we weren't told about it. Maybe the covet we should have been told about it, but whatever, we're still chayav to obey the Tainus Tzibur Sheba, the fact that this is a public fast among the congregation. Yeah, I mean, to the point, like Rabbi Yochanan's answer is so strong, I just don't really understand what Rish Lakish's Havamina was. Why would this be different? They didn't say this is your Tainus Yachid, the Tainus Tzibur. Why do you have to be informed of the Tainus Tzibur beforehand? Not 100% clear what Rish Lakish's Havamina was. Yeah, here's the Gemara. The Veinastia Gazer Ta'anisa, another Tainus that was nigzer by the house of the Nasi. Beloy also Mitra, and the rain didn't come. Tana Lahu Aishia. So Aishia, and listen to this appellation, unbelievable appellation. Tana Lahu Aishia, Zeira de Min Chavraya. Who is Aishia? The smallest of the rabbis. That's how he's known. Zeira de Min Chavraya, right? He's the smallest of the rabbis. So what was he darshaning? He said, "V'haya me'eni ha'eda nesesolish gaga." Right? What's the eni ha'eda? Eni ha'eda means the leaders of the congregation. Where do we know that eni ha'eda means the leaders of the congregation? Huh? Pashlach? Yeah, what does it say in Pashlach? We know it earlier in Pashlach Ba'aleischa, when Moshe Rabbeinu says to Yisrael, "Da'ha'isa lanu le'enayim." You'll be to us for einayim. What do you mean, be to us for einayim? This pasuk is coming from Pashlach, but I'm saying, you see that einayim are the leaders of the generation. Moshe Rabbeinu is telling Yisrael, you'll be a leader for us. You'll be for us the eyes. And over there, first explain, I mean, you'll be the leader for us. So, and later on, that is played upon by this pasuk later on in Bamidbar, that if the Einei Eda are making a mistake. So says Aisha Zeira de Min Chavraya. What does it mean? Mashal Kala Shibei Savia. When you have a Kala who's still by her father's house, marriage hasn't been consummated yet. So calls Manshena Yavasenko. They're not going to go check her out too carefully if she has beautiful eyes. And Teruta is Kogufa Tzricha. But if her eyes are very narrow, if they're not pretty at all, then Kogufa Tzricha. So what's he saying? He's effectively saying that the Einei Aida, their eyes are not so hati tati, meaning the leaders are not so great. So everything else, the kol gufa tzricha b'dika, it's a problem. Everything needs to be checked, and nothing's going to come out well in such a situation, such a matzav. If the Einei Aida are doing amazing and they're wonderful, so you're not going to check the rest of the guf. And so you won't notice the problems. Are there problems? Maybe. But the eyes are beautiful, so you'll forget about it. But here, since the eyes are bad, so you're checking out the whole body. Checking out the whole body, so you're checking out all of class. So, okay, we're not going to be early off. We have problems. So what's he really saying, Aishia? Is it the ear of the Min Chavraya? He's really saying that the reason we don't have brain is because our leaders are not so special. So what are the Avdei of the Beit Nasiya do? Also, Avdei, the servants of the Beit Nasiya came along, Gromla Suja B'Tzavre. they put the scarf around his neck. I don't know if they were choking him or they were intimidating him. The Kamatzar, they're giving him a lot of tsar. So Amru Lebene Masa, the people of the town there, said to the servants of the Venesia, Shavke, leave him alone. Dahan Nami Mitzar Lon. He does the same to us. He's always giving us tsar also. But Kevin the Chazin the Kalmila L'Shem Shemayim. But since we see that everything he does is L'Shem Shemayim, Loi Amr Midi B'Shavkin, we ignore him. We don't say anything to him. So Aton Nami Shavku. So you should also let him go. That's the end of the story. I assume that means to let him go. But for our purposes now, what is to be reminded is the idea that Aisha is the Iridim and Chavrai is saying, which is that when the tzaddikim of a generation are truly tzaddikim, so it could help elide the flaws and the faults and the foibles of the people. But when the elites of the generation are not really tzaddikim, so then Hashem is going to take a look. Let's look at the rest of the generation. And then if everybody comes up bad, there's very negative consequences. We'll come again back to that later today. Fine. So now we're going back generations. We go back now to Rebbe. So the Rebbe goes to Ta'anit also Mitra. Rebbe was goes to a Taanit, again because of the lack of rain. And no rain came. Nachas Kame Ilfa, the Amrle Rebbe Ilfi. So either Ilfa or Rebbe Ilfa, maybe it's the same person, I'm not sure. So comes down in front of him to David. Remember Ilfa, we had him back on Chaf Aleph, right? We had him in the Maisa there about going out to work with Rabbi Yochanan, right? Should he go out to work? Should he not go out to work? So he went to David. Amar Mashiv Haruach. He said he got up to Shemon Esrei. He's doing Chazar Sashach. He says Mashiv Haruach v'nasa Zika. Right, so the windstorms. Moed Hageshem v'asamit, and it starts raining. All he has to do is say Mashiv Haruach Moed Hageshem, which we already know is what? Not even about Kasha. Right? The same time, this is a Zecher of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's power that he can bring the rain. It already starts from Mashiv Haruach. Amar Le, my Uvdach. So Rebbe, as we mentioned already many times, when it came to spiritual things, there was spiritual hack. Rebbe is impressed. This guy's bringing the rain. He just says Mashiv Haruach. So he wants to know what's so special about him. He's not embarrassed to ask. So Amalei, Dayarna Bekusta Dechika. He says, I live Bekusta Dechika in a very poor city. The lesbe chamer lekidusha v'avdalta. The imams don't even have enough money for wine for kiddush and avdallah. Tarakna v'aisina chamer lekidusha v'avdalta. And I'm going and making myself crazy to be able to provide them wine for kiddush and avdallah. Mafkinu lu yidei chavisau. And by my efforts, they're able to be mitzi. They're able to be yotzi the chiyuv. That's why I'm so special. That's why when I say Mashiv Haruach Geshem, Hashem answers my prayers. So a couple of things. Number one, there is what seems to be a repeat of this Gemara in Bamitzia Pehei, but it's really not. Over there in that Gemara, Eliyahu Hanavi, the Gemara says, was Shchiach Kameh, the base medrash of Rebbe. Eliyahu Hanavi used to hang out in the base medrash of Rebbe. Remember, we just had literally back a couple of blocks before, where the Gemara says on Chav Beis, over there, there was a guy named Rabbi Chuzah, and Eliyahu used to go hang out with him. And they were going in the market, and he said, "Oh, who's special here? Who's worthy of the world to come?" We had two mices there about Chanim. We had the Maisa about the guy with the prison guard. So over there in that Gemara Bamitzia on Pehei, the Gemara says that Rebbe is having a conversation with Eliyahu Hanavi, and they're talking about like what would be able to sort of like the spiritual power to be able to bring about great things in this world. Who alive? So Eliyahu Hanavi says to them, "Oh, Reb Chia and his sons. Reb Chia and his sons, they have some incredible powers." The Gemara over there says, Rebbe was geyser at times. The context of the Gemara is not a fast day for rain. The context of the Gemara is that who can be Mechayim Mesim, who is the one who has the power to bring Mashiach? Who is the one who has the ability to move the world to the next world? Rav Chia and his son. So they get up to daven, and the Gemara says, they say, Mashiv HaRuach, there's a wind. Marad HaGeshem, there's a rain. They're getting to Mechayim Mesim, and the Gemara then has an interlude, and in the middle of the story, it says, who was Megal this side? Eliyahu Navi, and they start giving him 60 lashes of the pulse of the Nura, right, of the fiery whip. We also had more in the end of Yuma. Similar thing of the by Gabriel. So they mamash whipping him like this. I remember the pulse of the Nura. We actually had it in the Ravid on the Gemara in the beginning here. We on Dal and Amud Aleph. We brought up this Ravid there in Taanit on Dal and Amud Aleph. We had the what do you call it? Asking our Kodesh Baruch Hu inappropriately. So we ended up talking about Eliezer and Avram, if that's a nichosh or not. Remember, the Rambam says that Eliezer, when he said what he said about whoever's going to be giving water to me and the camels, is the one who's worthy. So the Rambam says that the nichosh, the more in Chulin on Tzadi Daled, and the Ravid says that no, whoever says such a thing is deserving of pulse of the Nura. Right? He said about the Rambam. So it's like this is a scary thing. Yeah, they wanted to indict in Israel. They wanted to indict some Kabbalistic rabbi back in 2000 and something. About I think it was the Gaza disengagement or something. There was a rabbi who was against it, so he said that Ariel Sharon is deserving of a pulse of the Nura. He was the prime minister at the time, and he had a stroke, so they wanted to indict the rabbi. All right. The question: what exactly is the hezek? Right. The hezek with words, but hezek with words by Masira is one thing, but it's not Masira. Maybe it's Masira to heaven. I'm not sure, but put it on the side. Anyhow, so in that Gemara there, I don't think that Gemara is akin to this Gemara. Why? Because in that Gemara, I didn't finish the Gemara. So the Gemara says there about Masira, they gave him Mechayim Mesim, and the world starts to shake. Why? Because it's about to Mechayim Mesim. So they send down, Eliyahu has to come down like they managed to give him makas, and he comes down like a fiery bear and scares Rav Chia and the sons, and they stop davening, and that's the end of it. I don't know what it means. They didn't daven the rest of the year. Like, what does it mean? They daven for the Amud only? That's what happened. I'm not 100% clear how to understand the Gemara, but it's not the point. The point is, why did it start raining there? Because it said, Marad HaGeshem. The same way that when they were going to say Mechayim Mesim, it was going to be Mechayim Mesim, literally, because that's their power of tefillah they had. But what's not clear in the Gemara there is Rebbe got Rav Chia and his sons to daven because he was Geyser at Taanit. But why was he Geyser at Taanit? In that Gemara, there's no mention there of a lack of rain. Rebbe wanted to see. Eliyahu says that the people down here in this world who could bring Mashiach, who could bring Chesed Mesim not in its proper time, that is Rav Chia and his sons. So the Rebbe was Geyser at Taanit, says a Heichatimtza to see it, and Rav Chia and his sons go to daven because it's the Taanit. And there is rain, but not rain because of the lack of rain. Rain because they're saying Mashav Ruach Marad HaGeshem, so it has to rain. So in the Gemara, the words are almost literally identical, but I think the story is coming from a different place. That story is coming from Rebbe wanting to see Bahai Alma who has this spiritual power, whereas in this story, there was a lack of rain. That's number one. Second, I'm a little bothered by this like incredible deeds of Ilfa, that he's going out to get wine for Kiddush and Havdalah, like amazing. I'm not so amazed. The Gemara says in Brachas Lamadal, we have the Gemara, that it depended on the wealthiness of the community, whether or not they were yotz to Kiddush and Havdalah in davening, or they had no wine. When they were poor and they didn't have wine, they were yotz with davening. When they were rich, they didn't have wine. Why do we still say Vayichulu and Shemona Esrei on Shabbos? We don't have to. We have wine. Okay, but it's ready in the tefillah, it's kavua, so we keep it. But it's not inherent. By definition, we're going to be yotz zayin on wine, so we don't need to say it in Shemona Esrei. So people were pretty chilled about it. And it literally depended on the wealth of the community that they would either say, Atachan and Tano, that was their Abdallah, or they would do it on wine when they were wealthy. And when they were wealthy, it's mashing from the Gemara that they didn't say an Atachan and Tano. They didn't say it at all. They use it on wine. We today not only do it on wine, but we also keep it in all the tefillas. But it's such an amazing deed that this is what he did. They were able to be to something else. They were able to be to 100% without having to do it on wine. And as we've proved already many times, the kiddush al yayin is not deraisa. Kiddush is deraisa. The kiddush al yayin is rabbanan, and it depends on the facts and circumstances. So if you say like you're helping people, a big mitzvah, you're helping widows and yisraimim and whatever. Okay, I understand. You help them be mekayim a mitzvah rabbanan, like. Is this like the biggest thing that should be zeichet to this kind of a level? They're Chia and the sons. Like, this is unbelievable level. Not sure. But one thing is, if this is Ilfa, then it shows you even when a guy went to go become a merchant and a businessman, he nevertheless still had tremendous access. And then it begs the question, the Gemara Aleph said that he didn't hear the Basko. And nevertheless, he could still do this. Imagine the level of Rabbi Yechon. All right, so more. Rav Iklahu Asra. So Rav came to a town, and again, it's the issue of rain. Goes with Taanit Mitra. He was goes with Taanit, no rain came. Nachas Kame Shlicha de Tzibur. So in front of him came some Shlich Tzibur. Amar Mashav Rach Menashav Zika. Amar Nageshem Vasa Mitra. Again, the same kind of Maisa. So Rav is upset. All right, he was goes with Taanit Vasa Mitra. Here's some Shlich Tzibur. We don't even get a name from the guy. Comes down, and he's now on the level of Ilfa, the level of Rav Chia Ubanov. He's an unbelievable level. They say Mashiv Arach and boom, it starts to rain. So he says, Amrullah, my Ufda. Again, same like Rabbi. Like, so what do you do? How did you reach such a level? Amrullah, Mikri Dar Degiano. He says, I'm a Bible teacher. I teach kids Tanakh. And it's an amazing, amazing line in this Gemara. Right? We're not using any practical examples from school today. But it says, I treat the poor kids like the rich kids. If they don't have tuition, I still teach them. And anyone who doesn't have money to pay me, I don't take anything from them. My wife's grandfather started a school in Chicago called the Ari Crown Hebrew Day School. That was the guy who gave the money, so it went on his name. But he was the founder. And with his school, he didn't have a school like he owned it. He had a school like he put a board in place, professional. When he passed away, the school continues today. It's thousands of kids that graduated. I think it's over 1,000 kids enrolled. Amazing, first to eighth grade. And he said, I never turned away a kid who didn't have money. Any kid, like a lot of Russians and people came like after the Soviet Union collapsed, they moved to America. Some of them came to Chicago. If you're willing to send your kid to school, he's welcome in the school. Meaning, for a lot of them, they're poor. So, okay, whatever. Like, we'll figure out the Jewish part. We'll read some books. They go to something, a session here or there. He said, no, the best thing is not to be in public school. Best thing is to be in Jewish school. And if money is the issue, it will be as expensive as public school. That's this level of this person. Unbelievable level. He says, my job is to be a Tanakh teacher. That's how I get my own payment. We have the Gemara Ba'abasach, like, how does that work? You can't get paid for teaching Torah, especially you can't get paid for teaching Torah. Shabbat. How is it, right? The same way Hashem says, I am free, so too the Torah. So, what do we say? It's a Schar Batala, it's whatever, it's babysitting. But effectively, this is Parnasa. And he's saying, I don't take Parnasa. To have the kids, the next generation, be learning is Parnasa enough. So he says when they don't have money, I still teach them. Now it's unbelievable even more. Not only does he teach the rich and the poor, but how he teaches them. V'isle pere de kuri, and now he says I have like some sort of Rashi, a fish pond. I'm not sure if it was like a fish pond like nowadays. They grow the fish. They have farm fish from the farm. They might grow fish like they grow vegetables. The Choman de Pasha, and any kid who's a Pesha, meaning he doesn't want to study, he's not interested. The summer, I have other things to do. Mishachin nale, he says, I'm sheikh them, I bribe them. Minayu misajin I bribe them with fish. I'm not sure if it means that he bribes them like to give them some like herring. I mean, that's not just a good bribe. Maybe he bribes them that they can go fishing in the pond. They can go and go fish for the fish. When you go fishing in the pond, you always catch fish. That's called catching, not fishing. Right? So and I get them excited and happy until they're ready to start learning again. Look at the pedagogical method. This is not the switch. This is not the strap. This is the method, which is very modern, right? Of trying to, in the Hasidic world, the lamplighter, right? Everybody is a light. Every neshama is a light. Some people can turn their own lights on, but some people need a lamplighter. This is a Rebbe unbelievable. Not only takes in the poor, but the kids who aren't interested, he figures out ways to bribe them to get them interested. Unbelievable level. Because remember, even if the way to begin the study of Torah is artificial, so what? That's what we give them honey on the, when they come into learn the Aleph. It's different. Be shoych them, make them excited to learn, and eventually it'll become their own. Yes, this one I hear the unbelievableness of the deep, like it's amazing. Like mamish, to teach a new generation. They say about the Vilna Gaon that he didn't sign up for anybody except the Rebbe taught him Aleph base. The person who got him on the track. I mean, the person who can get you that at the beginning. This is the foundation. Imagine these kinds of kids who he taught, who understood this kind of a Rebbe, what he was giving them. Unbelievable. Yeah. The Gemara of Nachman goes to Taanit. Rav Nachman was goes to Taanit again for the lack of rain. But Rachman also Mitra. Almost Shakula Nachman. He says, Rav Nachman says about himself, take Nachman, chavutem and gudo, throw him down from the roll la'ara to the ground. College died again. He became very upset that when these guys are Taanit and everything, nothing's happening. The Mitra again. The rain came. How we understand all these stories in terms of practical miracles and all this is not for now, but in each one of these cases, the chalish tadas that they felt took their tefillah to another level. And when they became so upset, that's when they got the ring. Now they have an amazing story. Rabba goes to Taanit. So, right, this is the famous Rabba Nachmani. Rabba goes to Taanit, but Rachel also Mitra didn't work. Amrulay Bahar Rabbi Yehuda, the hackers of the generation, said to Rabba, Amrulay Bahar Yehuda, but when Yehuda, the famous Rabbi Yehuda, right? Yehuda Marav, Yehuda Mashmur, he was one of the biggest Amiram, right? Rabbi Yehuda, he had because of Tanisa. When Rabbi Yehuda was the guys who were Tainus, Asamitra, the rain would come. But you, it doesn't work this way. So I'm a little my Avid. Says, I don't know. What should we do? If you're going to say maybe we should learn more, maybe that's what we're missing. We didn't learn enough. I'm not at the Finaminayu. We're much greater learners today than we are in the generation of Yehuda. Why? The Mishnah, the Rabbi Yehuda in the days of Rabbi Yehuda called Tanuye. Turn the page on Chavdalim. It's called Tanuye, but Nezikin. What are they were big experts in Nezikin. They were big experts like in one Seder or in the three normal Siddharim, right? Mayed, Nashim, Nezikin. That's what they knew. But Vanan, Kamasanina, Mashiach, Sidra. We know all 6 Siddharim, not just 3. Meaning, remember the Gemara tells us in also Bamatzia, they're on Peivav now. The Gemara says about and Pevav, about Rabbah says about himself, Ani Yachid ben Egan, Ani Yachid ba'elis. The Gemara over there attests that Rabbi Nachmani is killed, but as they were heaven decided they want him back. Right? I must have mentioned the joke, so I apologize for repeating it, but it's a great joke. The Reader's Digest said, I remember reading it when I was 10 years old. Reader's Digest said that there was 2 friends, they were best friends when they were kids, and they used to play baseball together when they were older people. They said, we both love baseball so much, we play baseball our whole lives together, that when we're going to die, come back to whoever dies first, come back and let us know if there's to the other one, if there's baseball in heaven. So one of them dies, he comes back the next day to the other one, and he says, I have good news and bad. He said, no. He says, good news is there's baseball in heaven. No, the bad news, you're pitching tomorrow night. Right? So the same kind of a thing over here, right? He says, we are huge experts. We are unbelievable. We have she's a Mishnah. So what's the connection to Reader's Digest joke? Because over there, Rabbi says, Ani Yachim and Agam, Ani Yachim ba'elis. And in heaven, they had a big debate about a question that they had in Tyrus. And they're going back and forth, the Malachesh Sharis with the Rebbeinu Shalom, what's the halacha? They said, we have an expert, Rabbi, let's bring him to heaven and find out. We got to get him up to heaven. It's good news and bad news. He's the greatest. We got to get his expertise. Bad news is the only way you can get the expertise into heaven is by coming upstairs. Yeah, is that the Gemara? And nevertheless, despite the fact that Rabbi was an expert and she's a Sidrei, when Rabbi Yehuda would get to Uktzin, right? When he's learning in Tyrus, he doesn't know. The question was about the alim, the leaves on a vegetable. Do they go with the vegetable or not in terms of tumah v'tayra? And what would Rabbi Yehuda say when he got to this Mishnah there in Otzen? So Amri Havayis the Rabbi Shmuel Kachazinoch. He says, "Listen, I see that like this is so hard. It's like the complicated machlekes and Rav and Shmuel. Remember, Rabbi Yehuda is a student of Rav and Shmuel, right? He was the Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav, and Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. The Anan comes Saninam Ve'uktzin place in Mesivta. We have 13 different base madrashas where they're studying Tyrus. And nevertheless, V'ilu Rabbi Yehuda Kavashol Chad Nisana Asimitra, and Rabbi Yehuda take off one shoe, the rain would come. V'anan Kochat Sav V'chinon Kulei Yom V'Leka Da'ashkach Bei. Right, and we're mamish like what? Crying all day, fetching all day, and no rain comes. So the Gemara says that Rabbah says about themselves, about that generation. Is it because maybe I did something wrong? So then Yika the Chazim Midi Lema, right? Then if somebody saw something negative in me, tell me. Tell me what I did wrong. I'm happy to make amends. But obviously no one responded. No one telling him, oh yeah, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. Now, I don't really understand how this fits with the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Yudches. Over there, the Gemara says that Abai dies at 60, Rabbi dies at 40, and Abai, even though they're both Kahanim, B'nai Eli. And what happened to B'nai Eli? B'nai Eli were punished, right? They acted inappropriately. And what was the punishment? Effectively, that the family was going to have like a lahavdil, like, Kennedy's family, right? Some big, I don't know who it was, but somebody cursed out the Kennedy family that they should die young, right? He was a big anti-Semite, the father of the president, the huge anti-Semite. He was like the ambassador to England, and he managed to give big sorrows to the Jews. And you have a lot of tragedy in the Kennedy family. So people want to attribute it to that. I have no idea if it's a true it's a apocryphal, I don't know. But Rabbah, the Gemara says, dies at 40. Why? Because Abaya, even though they're both from B'nai Eli, Abaya lives an extra 20 years because Abaya didn't just do Torah. He did Torah v'chesed. But Rabbah was just Torah. Rabbah died at 40. I'm not 100% clear. Imishamuvda doesn't mean that the Uvda is that he did something bad. Maybe the Uvda is that he didn't do enough chesed. Not bad. Not that he did anything bad, but he was the only Torah. That's what the Gemara says about him. So maybe that would be a reason enough. Anyhow, no one says anything to him. So listen to Rabbi's line. What should the Gedolei Adar do when their generation is bad? In other words, what's Rabbi saying? It's not my fault. I am lifting up the generation. We have studied all the seasons. We're great. I've done nothing wrong. But the generation that I'm in has a lot of problems. And that's the reason for the lack of rain. Now the Gemara says over the story about Rabbi Yehuda, Chazu, Aluna. Rabbi Yehuda, the mice that we're going to find out, that when he would take off his shoes, rain would come as follows. Rabbi Yehuda, Chazu, Hanu Beit Shrei. He saw two people throwing around bread. Remember the Gemara in Brachas on Nun. The Gemara told us over there, you're not allowed to throw around bread. You can throw around other food items, but not bread. He saw people throwing around bread. There's too much food. There's a nice, there's a ravchus. Yav Eina Havikafna. He set his eyes on them, right? Whenever we say the Gemara Yav Eina can sometimes be very negative, right? People could die when you're Yav Eina. This whole topic of ayin hara, etc. I'm not getting into it now, but Yoav Eina can sometimes be very, very negative. So he put his eyes on the place. He was upset. They were throwing around bread. Havikafna became a famine. So the rabbi said to Rav Kahana, who is the son of Rav Nechunya, not the regular Rav Kahana, Shameh, who was his Shamish, Mar the Shchiach Kameh, you. Rav Kahana, brother of Nechunya, who hang out, you're the Shamish of Rav Yehuda, we need to do a favor for us, right? We have a problem, right? Make sure that when he goes out of the house, he's going to walk by nearby the shuk, so he could see that there's a famine, and maybe he'll change his mind about what's going on. So that's what happened. That's what they did. He comes out from a doorway near the shuk. He saw a big gathering of people. Amrulu, my high. He said, why is everybody gathered together? Amrulay, achsufa de tamri kaima. They said, oh, there's a container of dates, and everybody's dying for a date. So there's a crowd. Achsufa de tamri kaima to come is daven that they're selling a container of dates, and everybody's crowding around because you can't find dates, you can't find food. Amashmami no kafna ba'amli. He says, wow, there must be a big famine. Amalei l'shamei. So he says to the shamesh, "Shalif li misani, take off my shoe, because I'm going to go daven now. I'm going to make a tainus." Shalif chalei chad misani. He took off one shoe, v'asa mitra, and the rain came. He matal mishlav achrina, when he was about to take off the other shoe. Asaliyo v'amarle. Eliyahu Navi comes to Rav Yehuda and says to him, "Hakadosh Baruch Hu Amar, right? Amar Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says to you, Ishalafes achrina mecharivna la'alma. You take off another shoe, the world's going to be destroyed." Meaning, stop. That's the Maisa. The whole Maisa here is so much questions, we don't have time to really discuss, but just imagine that the Gemara is making out that Yehuda himself brought the famine. And so he's like Eliyahu Navi. He's taking away the rain and he's bringing the rain based upon the godless or the lack thereof of the generation. Is that something that should be or is to ideally to be normative? Put it on the side. Amar Rav Mary Bereder Bas Shmuel. Right, Rav Mary Bereder Bas Shmuel. Right, the Gemara says about him. Right, we had it also in the Gemara in Brachas. Also, we had a mention of Mary Bereder Bas Shmuel. It was on Yud Zion. So over there, who's Rav Mary Bereder Bas Shmuel? Shmuel had a daughter who was nishbes. She was captured, and the daughter was effectively forcibly taken against her will, and she had a child. Are married. And the father ended up converting. And his name became Isser, like the money, but also the name is definitely a play on what happened. And even though Rav Mary has a father who was Isser, who becomes a regular Jew, etc., nevertheless, since Tairasa was Shaloi B'Kedusha, we call him on his mother's name, not on the father's name. So that's why Rav Mary berated the Bas Shmuel. So at that time, when Rabbi Yehuda decided that we have to start davening for the famine to go away, he says, "I know havika imna aguda denahar Papa." I was standing by the river called Papa. I saw malachim that they were like sailors. That they were taking flour and filling it up on boats. It was like mamish great flour. And everyone wanted to come by it. Amar Lome, all like to Zavnina. The Ma'aser Nisim, who says, don't take any flour from this, because this is all Ma'aser Nisim. Lamacher, he says, tomorrow, I son Arbe Dechiti, the Parzina. Tomorrow is going to come along other ships from Parzina, and it's going to have other flour, and we'll take our flour from there. So we have to stop over here. Tomorrow, I'll do a little bit on the sugya of Ma'aser Nisim, and we'll also do the major sugya of Chanina Mendoza and all the wonderful stories about him.